I call in Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And well, I find myself agreeing with the previous speaker, Simon Bridges. It's a rare moment in the House, and I'll savour it for as long as it lasts, because I completely agree with him. This is a technical pair of bills. He used the word bland. He may impugn the bill, I think, with that word, but he's absolutely right. It's a technical couple of bills, but nevertheless, because they deal with issues of customs and of biosecurity, are absolutely fundamental to New Zealand's security and to New Zealand's economy. We are a small country with big borders, and we rely heavily on our primary industries, and for those reasons biosecurity needs to be paramount in our thoughts. We need to make sure our biosecurity systems and our biosecurity personnel are resourced to the maximum that they can be, so that they can carry out the work that is required to keep our borders safe, to keep our economy moving. And although it's absolutely true that what these bills really deal with goods and people coming into the country, it is that security at biosecurity and that ability to secure our good name internationally is very important for our exports, and of course trade absolutely fundamental to our place in the world and what we do. So, Mr. Speaker, yep, technical bills, reasonably bland, as Mr. Bridges says, but extremely important. And again, drawing on what Mr. Bridges said, what's central to these bills is it is about information sharing and improving processes. It's important, I think, and some of my colleagues have mentioned this, that we don't put such an over-reliance on process and on technology that we ignore the role of people like biosecurity officers. And it was their role which was ignored by the government in the last term. And that, I think, is what Damien O'Connor was alluding to, is that you need a system and people, a total system which is robust and reliable, and you can't reduce the focus on personnel and shift all the responsibility onto technology in some misguided attempt to save costs at our borders. So as much as we support this bill, we recognise that you need total systems to be able to ensure that our borders are safe and robust. I think there's been some aspects of these bills, particularly the customs bill, which have been overlooked in this third reading. I'm quite happy to admit that I wasn't on the select committee, and I'm reasonably new. I did miss out. I'm sure it was a very pleasurable experience, but I found a couple of things in the bill which I thought were particularly interesting. The issue of biofuels has been mentioned by some other members, that duty will not be applied to biofuels that are manufactured for personal use, which is an interesting phrase given that we're talking about customs, and some of the other substances that we're trying to keep out of the country may be that people want to have for personal use. But good to see that a sensible amendment was made by the select committee there. Interested to see that customs officers are now able to use reasonable force to remove people from a customs area, and that it is now going to be an offence to harm a customs dog. I'm surprised that those two provisions had to be introduced. The poor beagles apparently have been able to be harmed in some way by some upset traveller as they're arriving at Auckland Airport in the wee small hours of the morning, and the dogs now have some method of defence available to them, which is good news, and surprised to hear that it's being introduced in this bill. What has been completely overlooked is the increase of fines which can be applied to travellers coming into the country. Petty offence provisions, it will now be easier for customs apparently to extract a fine from people who commit minor offences, but those fines are being dramatically increased. Minimum fines increased from $50 to $200, and maximum fines increased from $10,000 to $50,000. So whilst we're smoothing the passage through the customs area at the airport, dramatically increasing those fines. And this one bit that I'm really interested in, and this shows my sort of lack of experience of the passage of the bill through the House, but the department will no longer be required to give any infringer the opportunity to say why they should be exempt from a penalty, which seems to me to be contrary to the laws of natural justice. And I'm sure this was addressed at the Select Committee, and if any member who was on the Select Committee can address that issue and say why that isn't contrary to the laws of natural justice, I'd be interested to hear what they have to say. What counter to that, interestingly, the infringer will now have to pay the fine up front, and if their case is either reviewed or appealed, the fine will be refunded. And the bill introduces a system of bargaining where the infringer can admit an offence in writing and pay a fine of about a third of what a court might order. So it facilitates someone who is accused of a customs offence being able to admit their offence, but it actually takes away their ability to offer some defence up front, some defence for their infringing, which is an interesting development in the bill, and as someone who is new to it, I found that particularly strange. There's some costs associated with this bill as well. Whilst everybody's been talking about how this will improve processes, how this is going to be good for travellers, how this is going to be make our borders safer and more robust, there are some costs associated with it, and industry sources have estimated that the cost of new information sharing systems could be around $200 million. And the government has conceded that they expect to recover at least some of those development costs from the expanded import transaction fee. So people who are bringing goods into the country are going to face higher costs as a result of this legislation. Now, as David Parker said, we should be focusing on trying to drive our exports, not our imports, so perhaps increased fees for people importing goods is not such a bad thing. But a country that is reliant on trade wants to be careful not to apply too many, hidden tariffs to people who are trying to import goods into the country, lest we be faced with a similar approach to additional costs and tariffs from the countries that we are trying to send our goods into. Mr. Speaker, as I said, these bills are an important part of ensuring that we have strong borders. Biosecurity is such an important part of ensuring that the New Zealand economy is resilient. The examples of PSA, the examples of the Varroa mite, the concerns that the pork industry have over the possible introduction of PRRS in the future with the loosening of pork importation rules. Those are all part of this total system, of which these bills are a small part, and we need to be constantly vigilant and aware of what is going on across the whole system. So the relaxing of rules that allow less stringent treatment of pork before it comes into the country, the laying off of biosecurity officers, those things actually undermine what these bills are trying to do. So let's be honest, it's not all roses. These bills are good, but there are other things going on as well that we need to be vigilant about. But Mr. Speaker, on these bills, we do support them.
I call Alfred Naro.
Mr. Speaker, I stand in support of the Customs and Excise Joint Border Management Systems Information Sharing